everyone, it's Deidre here from Our Upcycled Life. Lots of thrifting, upcycling, repurposing, DIY content. Love to have you follow along. Today is all about upcycling some tin cans. I've got some coffee canisters I'm going to upcycle and some soup tins I'm going to upcycle. These have been really popular around the internet the last little bit, so I thought I would make a video with my spin on them. Really easy DIYs, lots of work. Let's get at it. I've been seeing on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook lots of these upcycled tin cans into wall pockets or smashed tins or little hanging tins, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do mine today. Now my can opener, when I use it, it smooths the edge around the rim. If yours doesn't do that, you might want to take a file around the edge after you've taken the top or the bottom off so you don't have a sharp lip and you cut your fingers on it. Mine are pretty nice and smooth right now, but I am going to take the can opener around the rim just once more, just to push it down a little bit, and then we'll be ready to go on to the next step. Now you can use your hands to do this. You can squish the tin cans together. You can use a rubber mallet to squeeze them together. It's a lot of work and you have to have strong hands, but it can be done. I'm fortunate. My husband is a power sport mechanic and he has a vise in the garage. This makes really easy work of doing these smashed tin cans. I'm just going to put it in the vise and just slowly twist the handle, pushing that tin can together. You want to make sure you have some gloves on and some protective eyewear. And just take your time. And I'm just going to work away at just squeezing the bottom of that tin can together, moving it along the edge until it's sealed really well. And like I said before, if you don't have a vise, that's okay. You can form these with your hands. It just takes a little bit of extra strength and a little bit of extra time, but it can be done. My coffee canister worked perfect. Now we're going to drill some holes in it. You can decide whether you're going to put your hole in the back to hang it or on the sides, but I like to take a block of wood and then put it underneath the tin can and drill into that. And you can just pick any size drill bit that you want for the string that you're going to put through it. Now tin cans over time, if they're not sealed properly, will leach rust. So I'm going to use a spray primer to seal these all up before I paint them. For my first project, I'm going to mount some of these smashed tin cans on a piece of wood. I've just got a brand new piece of pine and I want to put some of my homemade stain on it to make it look old and vintage. I have a full tutorial on how to make that stain. I'll put that down in the description if you want to learn how. I wanted this brand new piece of wood to look old and vintage. I took my knife around the edge and just chunked out some of the wood. I went at it with a hammer and I banged it and put some notches in it. Once I have all of the stain on it, I'm going to take a rag, wipe off the extra, and you're going to have a piece of wood that looks old and vintage and antique in just a couple minutes. And it looks fantastic. I've taken my tin coffee canisters out to my shed, sprayed them with that spray primer, and then I mixed up some baking soda paint. I love the texture that this gives to this project. Really easy to make. I have a full tutorial on that recipe. You can catch that down in the description. And these tins will probably take 2 coats, and I'll let them completely dry in between each coat. I find that step of adding that spray primer is a must when doing this project. If not, it might look okay for a couple days, but after that, I always see that rust kind of leach through. If you like that look and you want that vintage kind of age look on your tins, then you can leave it without priming, but these ones I wanted to keep nice and bright and white. I've printed off a couple fun quotes that I want to put on top of these tins. I've printed these graphics off on my LaserJet printer, and we're going to do the Mod Podge reverse graphic transfer method. These coffee canisters are perfect for this method because there's no ribs in them, so when we're rubbing off the graphic, you don't have to worry about getting all that paper off in between each of those ribs. This technique will also work on the regular tin cans. It just takes a little bit more patience to get it rubbed off. We're just going to apply the Mod Podge to the graphic, just with a light coat. You don't need very much. Just make sure you're covering all of the graphics, and then we're going to place it on the tin can, making sure it's centered exactly where we want it. All the graphics I'm using today for my projects are available in my Etsy store. Make sure you use the code SAVE50 and you can get 50% off all of my graphics and use these for your own crafting projects. This is the next day. They have sat, they're nice and dry. We're going to take a damp rag with a little bit of water on it and just dampen it so you can start to see the graphics show through, and then start rubbing off the paper. I love this graphic. Long live vintage. I have all the paper rubbed off those 2 tins. Now I want to seal them up really well with some water-based polyacrylic sealer. Before I put the tin cans on the front, I want to add a sawtooth hanger to the back of that piece of wood to hang it on the wall when we're all finished. I'm now ready to mount those tin cans onto that piece of wood, and I just have a couple little screws, and I'm going to screw them through the hole that I created in the back. We're going to add the finishing touches. I have some of this moss that I picked up at the dollar store. I'm going to put a little bit in each tin can and then add some faux flowers that I have, and I love the way that this turned out. The best part about a project like this is the tin cans came from the recycling bin, and it was just a scrap piece of wood that I had laying around, and how adorable did it turn out. Next one, I had this one and it already started to rust a little bit on it. I'm going to embrace the rust and leave it as is. I'm not going to paint it. I'm going to put a vinyl transfer on this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clean it off with some rubbing alcohol so we have a really clean surface before we put the transfer on. I got out my Cricut and I created this graphic, Junk and Crap. I thought it was very appropriate for this rusty tin can, and I'm just going to put it on the front. Now I've got a piece of wire that I'm going to turn into a really cute hanger. I just wrapped it around my screwdriver so it gave a bit of a swirl, and then I'm going to feed it through those holes that I drilled in the side to create a hanger. This one was so easy, it only took a few minutes, and I filled it up with some of my junk and crap. Next tin can, Upcycle. This tin can I've sprayed with some primer, and now I'm going to paint on some of my sand paint. I love using sand paint, creates a really nice texture on your projects. I'll put a link down below for that recipe if you want to make some for yourself. This took 2 coats of the sand paint. It's completely dry now, and I'm going to seal it up with some of my polyacrylic sealer. I love the texture that that sand paint leaves. I've made a fringe with some macrame cord that I had, and I just did a lark's head knot along a piece of the macrame cord to create the tassel, and I'm just going to hot glue it onto the bottom of that tin can. I'm going to add a string to the top, and I put a little bit of some faux plant in it, and it's adorable. Last project, we're gonna do some decoupaging with a napkin. I have 1 napkin that I've taken down to just 1 ply, and we're gonna cut it to size to fit the front of our tin can. So many possibilities with decoupaging these tin cans, so many napkins to choose from, or if you can't find a napkin that you're looking for, you can always create your own. I love to custom make my own napkins. I'm going to put this napkin on the tin can using the water transfer method. I find it's really easy for eliminating a lot of those bubbles and wrinkles. I'm just going to cut down a piece of that napkin to be the same size as the front. I'm going to lay it on a plastic sleeve facing good side down. I've just got a little rag with a little bit of water on it, and I'm just dribbling it on that napkin until it's completely wet. Gonna take my fingers, just make sure I get all the bubbles and the little creases out of it, and then I'm gonna pick up that plastic sleeve after I put the Mod Podge on the tin can and lay it where I want it. This is a really forgiving way of decoupaging because if it's not where you want it, you can pick it up and move it around a little bit. And I'm just going to use my hands to press it into that tin can, and then just carefully just peel away that plastic sleeve, and you're left with that napkin decoupaged on the tin can. I have a little bit at the top where it kind of ripped away, but that's okay because I'm going to put a fringe on the top of it. I love using a little piece of saran wrap also to get rid of any bubbles and wrinkles that you may have. Now we're going to do the back side of it. Same process, dribble a little bit of water, put the Mod Podge on the tin can, and then lay it on and take off the plastic sleeve and use a little piece of saran wrap to get rid of any of the bubbles and the wrinkles. We're going to peel away that plastic sleeve off the back, and we're left with a little bit of the napkin hanging off the edges. But I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim around the edges and then press it down with a piece of saran wrap, and it'll all blend in beautifully. I just love this napkin. I found these at HomeSense. I wanted to add this fun trim that I picked up at the thrift store, the whole bag for $2, and I love the little green pom-poms on them. If you recognize it, it's the same trim that I put on my lamp in my craft room here. Hot glued it on. It looks adorable. I had this little latch that I had in my stash. I hot glued it on the back, makes a perfect hanger, and I filled it up with some craft supplies. So there you have 4 different ways to make these tin cans into some really cute home decor. I'd love to know down in the description which one's your favorite. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. And if you love this video, you'll probably really love the next one.